Hi, today we're going to talk a little bit about paraphrasing. Paraphrasing occurs when you take somebody else's ideas or sentences and you change both the word order or syntax and the word choice or diction. A lot of students think that when you're paraphrasing, it suffices or it's enough to go ahead and do essentially a synonym swap, to just take a word and find a synonym for it and then take another word and find another synonym for that as well. But that's not quite enough for an effective paraphrase. You also need to work on the sentence structure. So for example, if I had a sentence where I stated, I went to the store and bought blush, eyeshadow, and foundation, it would not be an effective paraphrase if I just said, I traveled to the supermarket and purchased rouge, eye makeup, and base. As you can see there, I've found a different word for pretty much every word in that sentence with the exception of I, but the structure remains the same. I still have a list at the end, I still have an independent clause, I traveled to the supermarket, and a dependent clause, and purchased, and then the three items, okay? Even if I switched up the order of the three items in that particular sentence, it still wouldn't be quite enough for an effective paraphrase because I still have the list essentially at the end, and that's really the author's own structure. A much better and more effective paraphrase, and one that would avoid plagiarism, would be to say, I picked up cosmetics at the store. Or I guess I used store, so at the grocery store. So I picked up cosmetics at the grocery store. There I've changed the word order, and I've also changed the structure of the original sentence while still retaining the original's meaning, which is very important. A paraphrase retains the original's meaning while altering the word order and the word choice. Okay? So there you have an example of an effective paraphrase. When using paraphrasing in your writing, you also have to accomplish one more important step, and that's documentation. For this class, we're using MLA-style documentation. So when you find a sentence or sentences from an original and you paraphrase them, what you will need to do is at the end of the sentence, or sentences if it's clear that all of the sentences come from the same source, you would put the author's last name in parentheses and then a space, and then the page from where the material was originally taken, or a paragraph number if you're taking something from the web. And in that case you do PARA, para, and then the number of the paragraph. So in the example that I mentioned, I would put something at the end like Behrman space 2, say it came from page 2 of a book that I had on cosmetics. Okay? When you're writing, you also might want to use attributive tags, particularly if you're using more than one sentence from a text, so that your reader can follow along and realize that this material doesn't come from your own ideas but comes from a source. So for example, I might have said something to the effect of, Behrman mentioned that she picked up cosmetics at the store, and then still I would need the page number in parentheses at the end, and then the punctuation comes at the end of the parentheses. Okay? There are a couple of reasons why it's important to learn how to paraphrase. One of the most important reasons is that by paraphrasing, you really have to digest the material and show that you understand the original's meaning. Okay? When you quote, often you might have sort of a hazy idea of what the author is trying to say, but you might not fully understand the meaning of the original text. By paraphrasing, you're essentially exercising your reading comprehension skills and really learning to grasp the author's meaning and intent. Paraphrasing also is important because you have to learn how to differentiate between what constitutes quotable material and what material would be better paraphrased. Right? When we're quoting, we really only want to quote when the author has stated something so well that if we paraphrased it, we really would be losing the original's impact, its power, essentially. For the most part, we want to use quotes sparingly, and we would try to use paraphrases more frequently. For Edwards, which is the which is the author of Language and Identity, we're going to be working with his text a lot in our discussion board assignments, and I want you to try your hand at paraphrasing at these moments. So you will use attributive tags at points, and you'll always make sure that you're using proper parenthetical documentation by indicating the page number from where you got the material. And then instead of quoting him, try to paraphrase when you're answering the questions. Okay, so that concludes our little lesson on paraphrasing, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.